Have you ever wondered what it would be like if a celebrity owned an amusement park? Thanks to Dolly Parton, you don't have to look all that hard to find one. Welcome to Dollywood, the premier theme park located right in the heart of Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. This park started out as Rebel Railroad and went through some decent changes in its early years. Eventually, it was purchased by the Herschend family in 1977. In 1986, Dolly Parton came back to her hometown and bought an interest in this amusement park with the agreement to have it renamed to Dollywood. To put it lightly, this is a great park, and if you want to hear my thoughts on it, check out the links in the description where I have a playlist dedicated to everything Dollywood. Alright, look out for bears. We're headed to the Smoky Mountains. If you followed along with my other theme park ultimate guides, then you'll be familiar with the format of these videos. I like to break them down into 3 different segments. These would be what you should do before visiting the park, what to do once your plans are locked in, and finally, what to do once you're at the park. At the end of this video, it's my goal to have you as prepared as possible to have an unforgettable visit to this Smoky Mountain icon. Making these videos for you guys takes a lot of work, so I really appreciate all the support you're giving me. Every like, view, comment, and subscription really helps me out a lot, but if you feel like helping me out further, check out my Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can help me in my journey to bring even more of this high quality content to you guys. During this video, I'm going to have this audio cue when I have a secret tip. These ones are super important and can help give you an edge above the crowd. I will also be discussing the best times to ride the major coasters like Lightning Rod and what rows you should ride it in. Furthermore, I'll be discussing whether or not the Time Saver Pass is worth it when visiting the park, so stay tuned. Finally, I'll have some tips on what else to do around the park. So let's dive in. Like most amusement parks, there are some steps you should take to prepare before visiting. This would include things like what you should wear and where you should be staying. With all there is to do here, following a guide like this can help break it down and make it much easier to tackle. This is where we'll be discussing park entry options like tickets, as well as whether or not it's worth it to get the Time Saver Pass. Tip number 1, pick the right hotel for you. The Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge area is a hotbed for tourism, so finding a decent place to stay without paying an arm and a leg can be a challenge. The prices here can fluctuate highly based on which day of the week you're staying and what time of year. These prices are so volatile, in fact, that my best recommendation here is to go on websites like Expedia or TripAdvisor and shop around. There is a good chance you may have to pick a place slightly below where you normally prefer to stay, so make sure to factor this in when picking the hotel. If money isn't an issue, the Dollywood Dreammore Resort truly is the one and only place I'd recommend staying. Tip number 2, know what to wear. Cargo shorts are going to be king here. If you're not wearing them, then please, put some clothes on. These come in a wide variety of designs, but the key here is that you get ones with zipper pockets. If your pockets utilize buttons, things could easily slip out. Next, you need to have comfortable shoes. Wearing proper footwear can make or break your visit to any amusement park. Next, a good t-shirt. If you're visiting during the summer, it's going to be hot and humid here, and there's a guaranteed chance you'll be sweating a lot. So you want a light colored t-shirt made with good materials to keep you cool. In this case, athletic shirts are a great option. If you're going in the winter or early spring, temperatures can get pretty cool later in the day, so it might also be a good idea to bring along a light jacket with you. Tip number 3, know what to bring. As with any theme park trip that I go on, I have always found it to be a good idea to bring a small backpack, or for you trendy folk out there, a fanny pack. This ensures you can bring along all the necessities like pain meds, hand sanitizer, small snacks, a hydro flask, and more. Generally, if you're bringing a backpack, you want to bring one that is as small as possible while still being able to fit all your essentials. One final thing that I would recommend bringing is a portable charger. You're going to be most likely spending your entire day at the park and presumably taking a lot of photos, consulting the park app for information, or generally getting distracted by whatever it is you do on your phone. The last thing you want is to have your phone dying on you while you're still at the park. I want to highly stress the humidity in the summer of Tennessee. If you're someone who isn't used to this, you'll really want to prepare yourself for a visit here. The final thing you'll want to bring is what I call a cheese rag. I sweat a lot, so having a rag around to wipe the sweat away is a good idea to try not to allow yourself to be too gross and sticky. Tip number 4, plan to spend at least one full day here. Dollywood isn't all that large of a park, so you realistically may only need one day to experience all that you might want to do. There is a chance you may want to spend at least another half day here to make up for anything you might have missed, but your mileage may vary. With 10 coasters, the collection is not all that small, but also not crazy huge either. Depending on when you visit, lines often won't be terribly long, so it shouldn't be a huge challenge doing everything you might want to do. Tip number 5, pick the best time to visit. Dollywood is open pretty much year-round, so you have a ton of wiggle room when picking a time to visit. Due to the fact that the surrounding area is such a tourist hotbed, it often can have crowds on random days throughout the year. This is why visiting on a weekday is most likely going to be your best bet if you want to avoid the crowds. Some of the slowest months would appear to be May and September, however. As an addendum, straight from the horse's mouth itself, Dollywood states that the busiest days are different depending on the season. For instance, in the spring, Thursdays are less crowded. In the summer, the best days to visit would be Wednesdays or Thursdays. In the fall, weekdays are the least crowded, and during the Christmas season, weekdays are the slowest as well. All of this to say, if you can, avoid the weekends. Tip number 6, use these resources to help with planning. When picking out the best day to go, there are several websites like isitpacked.com and qtimes.com, which are a great resource for helping to anticipate what crowd levels could be. Something I should note here, these websites are not 100% accurate and only give an estimation of what they think crowds will be like on a day-to-day basis. They get most of their data from historical figures, so keep this in mind when visiting them. Secret tip number 1. Check out the VIP experience. For some, this experience may land on the expensive side, costing around $300 per person. If money isn't as much of an issue, I'd highly recommend trying this if you want an enhanced experience at the park. With this tour, you'll get front-of-the-line access on all attractions, preferred parking, and a few exclusive gifts, and more. You have your own tour guide who takes you around the park, and honestly, this can be a great way to experience this place. Tip number 7, try visiting during the special events. This one is harder to miss since there's nearly always a special event going on here. If you're visiting in the fall, there's the Harvest Festival. For winter, you have the Smoky Mountain Christmas event. In the spring, you have Flower and Food Festival, and finally, during the summer, there's the Smoky Mountain Summer Celebration. Each of these events sees the park adorned with numerous decorations and activities dotted throughout. These are all so good that, if at all possible for you, I highly recommend checking out each and every one of these events. Tip number 8, pre-purchase park entry or season passes online. Onto the website, this is where you want to go to purchase your entry tickets or season passes. When buying individual tickets, it is significantly cheaper and quicker to buy them online. It prevents you from having to wait in line at the ticket counter, which is not a quick process at all. Tip number 9, check out the dinner shows. Located around Pigeon Forge, there are a number of different dinner show venues. Katie and I visited Dolly Parton Stampede, and let me tell you, this was an incredibly fun experience. I would highly recommend checking one of these out during your stay in the area, especially if you brought kids with you. Tip number 10, check out these nearby attractions. While you're visiting this area, there is a huge variety of things you can do. From mini golf to shopping, there's bound to be something here for everyone. If you're a coaster enthusiast like me, you can't miss out on the large number of alpine coasters dotted all around the city. There's tons everywhere, and if you want to boost your credit count, you've got to catch them all. Tip number 11, download the Dollywood app. I will probably state this tip in just about every video. If the park has an app, you want to download it. These are great for getting not only live wait times and ride closures, but also for finding information on shows and having a digital park map. It's available on both Android and iOS, meaning unless you have a flip phone, you can download the app. These apps have a pretty decent filtering option so you can find exactly what you need, be it restrooms, rides, restaurants, and more. Tip number 12, find out if the time saver passes are worth it. If you watch my video about fast passes, you may remember me freaking out about the prices of fast passes at a bunch of different amusement park chains. Dollywood has their own fast passes called time savers. These range from $60 for the base version, $80 for Plus, and $99 for the premium version. If you have only part of a single day to visit or go on an extremely busy day, then it could be worth it to get these. But in my opinion, these passes are completely unnecessary if you're spending the entire day at the park. Now that you've picked out when you're going and all that, we should dial in more and figure out what to do while you're at the park proper. The most important part of this section is what to do at the start of your day. You really need to plan on making the right moves so that you beat the crowds early. Tip number 13, try the Dolly Parton experience. If you're a big fan of this American icon, why not check out the Dolly Parton Experience Tour? This one is listed as a separate admission, but it could definitely be worth it if you're a fan of hers, and the price on it is fairly reasonable. Tip number 14, know how extreme the coasters are. Dollywood has 10 coasters that each have a wide spread of how extreme they are. In order to make it easy to identify how extreme each of the coasters are, let's list them out from least to most extreme. Firstly, there's Blazing Fury. This is more of a dark ride than a roller coaster. It has a few sudden dips hidden in complete darkness, but these generally aren't enough to lift you out of your seat. Next up, we have Whistlepunk Chaser. This is a traditional kiddie coaster. It's small and you go around the track more than once, so you get a bit more value out of your time there. Since it is one of these small kiddie coaster designs, it can tend to throw you around a little bit, but not so much in an extreme sense. Moving on, we have Dragon Flyer. This is another great ride for kids that doesn't go too fast and it's over fairly quickly. This is an incredibly smooth ride with very comfortable restraints that hold you at your lap. At the 7th spot, we have Fire Chaser Express. This ride has a couple of launches and a lift hill. It has a few moments that are a bit higher off the ground, but nothing too extreme. Where this ride can gain some intensity is the second backwards launch it has, but for the most part, this is a fairly tame ride. Moving on to the 6th spot, we have Big Bear Mountain. Think of this ride as the bigger cousin of Fire Chaser Express. It goes faster, but doesn't have any backwards launches. One thing this ride does have is a few near-miss elements with its theming. Beyond that, it never gets too high off the ground, and it actually provides a fairly graceful experience. This pick could be debatable, but for the number 5 spot in intensity, we have Wild Eagle. While this ride could easily scare due to its height and inversions, fear not, as it too is incredibly graceful. This ride doesn't provide many extreme forces, so while it may appear super intimidating, it can be one of the more forgiving rides in the park. At number 4, we are starting to move into slightly more extreme territory with Tennessee Tornado. This ride is fairly smooth, but it is fast and it is forceful. Like many of the other rides, it doesn't get very high off the ground, but it can toss you about during certain transitions. Speaking of tossing you about, we have Mystery Mine at number 3. This ride could easily be a tad bit lower on this list if it had lap bars instead of over-the-shoulder restraints. Because of these restraints, expect to be tossed around a bit more during some of the ride's quicker transitions. It helps if you brace yourself. At number 2, we have Thunderhead. With a combination of the high speed, quick transitions, and plethora of near misses, Thunderhead would already be a more extreme coaster. Add to the fact that it's wooden, and that gives it another dimension of intensity. This ride isn't all that tall, but it goes fast and it throws you around. Moving on to number 1, we have Lightning Rod. This ride is like a bucking bull. It does everything it can to toss you out of your seat. It provides for a very smooth experience, but it has some of the quickest transitions and some of the strongest moments of airtime you can find at Dollywood. Tip number 15, bring a spray bottle. I cannot emphasize enough just how humid it will be while you're here. I apologize if I sound a bit like a broken record, but you should really find every way to cool off during those hotter days. If you have a spray bottle with a fan on it, bring it. Dollywood does have a ton of shade, but if you're here during the summer, trust me, you'll want to bring one of these. Tip number 16, save at least $150 to bring with you into the park. A meal at a theme park can cost roughly $30 for a single person. Having at least $150 to your name is a good idea for a single day here, so that you can pay for meals, lockers, and any additional things like snacks, on-ride photos, and souvenirs. You most likely could get by spending a lot less than this, but generally I feel like this is a fairly safe amount of money to have ready. Tip number 17, know where the best places to eat are. This isn't a huge park, so finding a place to eat shouldn't be all that difficult. If you're feeling a larger meal, why not consider checking out Aunt Granny's restaurant? If you're not feeling barbecue, why not check out the Front Porch Cafe? Finally, you can find a smaller selection of healthy options over at the Till and Harvest Food Hall located in Wildwood Grove. Tip number 18, know which flat rides are the best. Unfortunately, this is one area that Dollywood is a bit lacking in. Here are the top 5 ranked from worst to best, in my opinion. Number 5, Rockin' Roadway. Number 4, The Mad Mockingbird. Number 3, Drop Line. Number 2, the Dollywood Express Train. And finally, number 1, Barnstormer. Tip number 19, know which coasters are the best. If you want a more detailed list on my rankings of the rides here, which is slightly out of date, check out my Dollywood Top 9 video. Let's go ahead and rank the coasters here though. Number 5, Fire Chaser Express. Number 4, Thunderhead. Number 3, Wild Eagle. Number 2, Big Bear Mountain. And unsurprisingly, number 1, Lightning Rod. Tip number 20, make a checklist of all the things you plan on bringing with you to the park. I mentioned earlier how you should bring a small backpack with all the essentials you might need. I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but I can tend to be very forgetful. So having a written checklist I can consult before leaving my hotel has been a lifesaver. Make sure to write down all of the things you plan on bringing with you to the park and double check it before you leave. When I say everything, I mean everything, including the clothes on your back. You really wouldn't want to forget those. Tip number 21, either list or visually plot out your route using the park map available online or through the app. Later in the video, I'm going to give you a rundown of what I believe is the ideal itinerary for how to conquer this park. Even then, I wouldn't expect you or myself to remember every detail about this plan, so make sure to visually write down what your plans are exactly so you can consult back to these. In my opinion, when you're in the meat grinder, it's always a good idea to keep a list of goals and plan handy so that you can stay on track. You can easily draw on the map itself by taking a screenshot of the park map with your phone and using the included markup tools available inside the default photo gallery apps. This will allow you to visually chart out your path, or you can always use a list instead. Tip number 22. Eat a small but filling breakfast snack before visiting the park. Just like you would if you were going hiking, eating a healthy breakfast that leans on the smaller side is a good idea to follow when visiting Dollywood. This park sits on a hill, and while it isn't very steep, it can wear you down after spending a full day on it. If you eat too large of a breakfast, this could easily leave you feeling gross throughout the rest of your day here. Tip number 23, check the weather before you visit. Because the park is open year-round, it's pretty difficult to predict what the weather will be beforehand. Tennessee is one of those states that actually experiences all 4 seasons. This is why it is necessary to check the weather. This state does see a good amount of rain and stormy weather, and you wouldn't want your day cut short due to this. Since we've got most of the planning out of the way, now is the time to put that planning to the test. Keep watching as we're about to dive into the perfect itinerary for how to absolutely master this park. If you're like me and you like content creation, stay tuned as I have some great recommendations for the best photo opportunities later in this section. Tip number 24, mark your spot. This is just a good tip in general. If you're parking in the main lot in front of the park, either screenshot your location on your phone's map where you park, or take a picture of one of the nearby signs to denote where you are. There's nothing like spending an entire day in an amusement park, walking around and spending even more time trying to figure out where you parked. Tip number 25, follow this itinerary. Dollywood is one of those parks that doesn't require planning down to the second for you to be able to do everything you want to. Despite this, I'm going to highly recommend that you start your day out at Lightning Rod. This ride can often have the longest line throughout the park. Up next, it might be worth riding some of the flat rides in the area if you're interested. At this point, I turn around and head towards the left side of the park. Most of the coasters are located here anyways. The first major ride you're going to come up on is Thunderhead. Go ahead and skip this for now and head straight for Mystery Mine. This ride can often have a longer line, so hitting it early is best practice. From here, you can scoop up your credit on Thunderhead if you'd like. Next, you want to hit up Wildwood Grove. Skip past Dragonflyer for now and head straight to Big Bear Mountain. This is Dollywood's newest and second most popular ride. Once you get off of that, stop by Dragonflyer to get a ride on it, and then escape the heat. Ideally, you do not want to be in Wildwood Grove when the day is at its hottest, so around 3 to 4. The lack of shade here really makes it one of the most uncomfortable areas in the park. Your next stop will be Wild Eagle, Fire Chaser Express, and Tennessee Tornado. I would recommend riding these in order of preference as their lines don't often get too long. After finishing up with this group, I'd recommend grabbing a bite to eat in this area of the park, or at least a small snack. Next, you'll want to hit up Blazing Fury, and just like that, you've conquered all the major coasters. At this point, since you're at the top of the hill, you're closest to rides like Daredevil Falls and Barnstormer. Really, it's ideal to keep working your way down the hill, stopping by anything that seems interesting to you. There's lots of things to do here, and I highly recommend not skipping out on the things you're interested in. From here, the rest of the day is yours, but once the sun is going down and the park is close to closing, head back over to Wildwood Grove so you can get a good view of the firework and drone show. All of the time between then is up to you to enjoy. Tip number 26. If visiting on a Sunday, visit the church. Did you know that Dollywood has a functioning church inside? Located in the Craftsman's Valley section of the park, this church actually hosts services on Sunday mornings. You can easily get the bejesus scared out of you on the roller coasters and find him again inside the church. Tip number 27, head here for the fireworks. At the end of the night, Dollywood puts on a show involving fireworks and a drone show. I haven't seen many drone shows out there, but this one is really good. The usage of these drones and how they create 3D images with them is amazing, and in some ways, maybe slightly better than fireworks on their own. The best place to view it would be from Wildwood Grove in this little plaza area. Tip number 28, stay hydrated. As you can tell, there is a ton of walking and climbing you'll be doing while you're at the park. I highly recommend following the daily recommended water intake. For men, that means drinking roughly 104 ounces of water in a day, and for women, that means 72 ounces. The most common size of hydro flask I've seen carries roughly 32 ounces of water, so you want to drink this and refill it roughly 3 times over. It seems like a lot, but this is a really good amount to keep yourself hydrated throughout the day. Secret tip number 2, say hi to the vulture. Next to Mystery Mine is an animatronic vulture that is very talkative. Be sure to stick around to hear what he has to say. He's got tons of jokes and a few humorous stories. Tip number 29, know which seats are the best for each ride. Many of the rides here can be great in any seat, but for the ones that are better in different seats, let's list the best place to sit. On Thunderhead, the front seat is going to be the best. On Wild Eagle, seating doesn't matter, but I would highly recommend riding on the right side of the train. For Fire Chaser Express, this is a front or back row ride. For Big Bear Mountain, front row is the best. Tennessee Tornado is good in any row. And finally, Lightning Rod is the best in the back row, but the front row also provides for good forces. Tip number 30, know the best ways to cool off. Fortunately, Dollywood has 2 major water rides that both do a good job of helping cool you down. These would be Daredevil Falls and Smoky Mountain River Rampage. I personally prefer Daredevil Falls mostly because it is covered in shade, but both of them were great. Tip number 31, is Splash Country worth it? Splash Country is one of those water parks that stands above a lot of other offerings. It may not have the scale that many others do, but what it does have is a great environment. Like Dollywood, this park is well themed and takes into consideration guest experience. If you are a fan of water parks, you definitely will like this one. Tip number 32, know where to refill your hydro flasks. Fortunately, Dollywood is one of those parks that actually cares about their guests. Often located near the restrooms, there are water bottle refill stations dotted around the park. The water in these is nice and cold, and the park does a good job of keeping these up and running. Tip number 33, eat your meals later or earlier than the rushes. From about noon to 1:30 p.m., most of the restaurants in the park experience a rush where everyone is trying to eat lunch. I would highly recommend for you to either get your food no later than 11:30 a.m. or after 1:30 p.m. so you don't have to wait in a long line. Tip number 34, check out the award-winning shows. Did you know that many of Dolly Parton's siblings work at Dollywood? You can often find them performing in the live shows around the park. Most of these shows are located towards the front of the park, and each of them are incredibly high quality. The great thing is, there are shows aimed at all ages, so if you want to find something geared towards younger children, they'll surely have something here for them. Tip number 35, visit the aviary. Dollywood has one of the largest bald eagle sanctuaries in the world. This is one slightly hidden gem about the park that you don't often hear about. All of the eagles are unreleasable, and you can tell that they take great care of these birds. The thing that I love is how natural and large their enclosure is, as well as the fact that it isn't close to any major coasters. These birds are located in one of the quietest parts of the park, meaning that, as far as I could tell, they did not seem distressed, even in the slightest. Tip number 36, check out the best gift shops in the park. There really is only one gift shop you need to check out, and it's impossible to miss. The one located at the front of the park that serves as the park's exit. You know the one, with the giant poster of Dolly Parton? Yeah, that one. The next great gift shop would have to be the one located right next to Fire Chaser Express. If you're into nano coasters like me, you might be able to find all of the park's nano coasters in this gift shop. Tip number 37, know the best places for dessert. I'll make this one simple. The cinnamon bread you can get from the grist mill is the only dessert you need to try when visiting Dollywood. That's it. The other desserts here are probably good, but nothing compares to the cinnamon bread. Tip number 38. Know which are the best night rides. Dollywood is a park that is surrounded by forests on all sides. However, not many of its coasters are super long. With this being said, the best night rides in the park are Lightning Rod and Big Bear Mountain. Tip number 39. Check out the live music. Similar to the shows, Dollywood often has live music being performed around the park too. One of the things that I genuinely loved here is that you can tell that these employees are well taken care of and that they enjoy coming in to perform. Most of the music here is a mix of acoustic or country, so it may be a bit limited for some of you out there, but they all play from the heart. Tip number 40. Check out these spots for taking great photos. For our last tip, let's talk about photo opportunities. Many of the best spots located around the park are simply located wherever you can actually get photos of these rides. Our first spot puts us right inside the station building of Lightning Rod. From here, you can get what I call the iconic shot of this ride. Specifically, you'll want to stand on the platform right next to the exit on the ride platform. Moving on, we have this spot in Wildwood Grove. From here, you can get some decent views of Thunderhead, Dragonflyer, Big Bear Mountain, Mystery Mine, and Wild Eagle. Up next, we have this spot up on the hill above the park. From here, you're going to need a super long-range lens to get anything decent. And finally, we have this area located behind the ride area of Lightning Rod. Be careful with this one since you'll have to walk through some thick brush to get to it. Also, I wouldn't recommend lingering in this spot for too long, just in case somebody decides they don't want you there. By choosing to go to Dollywood, you've made a great choice, and hopefully you feel the same way after watching this video. By now, you should be fully prepared to go out there and conquer this one-of-a-kind experience located right in the Smoky Mountains. Be warned, however, that this park will infect you with a smile at some point during your visit, and this could be highly contagious to those around you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and comment below and hit that bell icon. Special thanks to our Patreon supporter, Future Collective. $1 a month helps me bring even more content to you guys, and I even have some exclusive content coming, so check it out. Check the description below to find links to the rest of our pages. Thanks for watching the video, and ride on, Coaster Maniacs.